If the reason for the USA attacking Iran is preemptive measures to curb nuclear weapons development, then should we do the same against the USA and those European countries for developing nuclear weapons? One message Zhengjian Yuan Jonte1314@gmail.com. Refer to the link below https://youtube.be/mum7z4x-k3c. C equals Ko1U4XJW4OM2EHW. If it is acceptable for USA to attack Iran simply because it is their preemptive measure to curb nuclear weapons development in Iran, then should others nation do the same on USA and its other NATO member? Should we have preemptive measures to curb possible colonization or further imperialism from the West? There's no lack of evidence and precedent of colonization and brutality by the Western countries. Less than 100 years ago, the British Empire span across the world, covering more than 24% of the world landmass, killing and enslaving millions along its way. France, Germany, Netherlands and Belgium all have fair shares of their bloody hand soak into their colonies. Should the rest of the world prepare to defend their independence, sovereignty and deploy preemptive measure to curb the hegemony of the West? I certainly do not think we should attack France and its allies Poland, Germany, Greece, UK, Denmark, Netherlands, and Belgium from developing better and greater nuclear arsenals for self-defense purposes, but also do not think we should be complacent enough to let things happen as it is. We do not know the underlying reasons, but it could be simply to defend themselves against USA or strengthen NATO military strength, especially in nuclear power. It could also use to colonize developing countries or to implement neo-colonization, colonize without liability. 1. USA nuked Marshall Islands before conquered them for no reason. The world were silent about it. USA remain the one and only one country on Earth to use nuclear bomb to kill innocent people for nuclear bomb tests. https://youtube.be/mmduasm6sds. C equals ADAZO-KEC-BMBB 1 kiloliter 2. The Rawaj massacre by Netherlands in Indonesia. https://youtube.be/omtpj-xc. C equals Azwaba YX Luz Kyunki 73. The British colonization on India. https://youtube.be/ch6seer-kcock. C equals SX2LYPRH2SHB1LX. 4. Mass enslavement and brutality by King Leopard in Congo. https://youtube.be/ho-dcwgstj4. C equals MW Harrit GNRXTRSW. The list go on, but one thing we know is all this happened within this same century and the effects still can be felt. UN do nothing about it nor recognize it as atrocity to humankind. Surely did not hold the perpetrators responsible. I see the world as moving towards the trend of Cold War between USA and Russia, except this time those developing countries, especially those previously countries colonized by Western powers, should step out together with big superpower to defend themselves against the Western sphere threats. For over half a century, we can observe that the UN is not political neutral and impartial in its operations. It is not to serve humanity or peace but political favoring the West. While I do not discount the UN had done lots of great deeds to the poor, third world and developing countries, but most of these countries wouldn't be in the state they are without the deprivation and enslavement of the West. India economy were 24% of the world before the British came, but dropped to only 4% as British continue to loot and industrialize at the expense of it. Millions starved to death unnecessary, and many were being trained to die for the British Empire for more colonization, expansion of its empire. While Iran has human rights issues in their homeland, but it is mostly contrained within Iran. In fact, the entire Middle East Arab states are having human rights issues, with Qatar and UAE being a more sensible and liberal countries when come to freedom and human rights. However, these Arabs and Muslim countries are not a threat to another country like the West do, and they don't interfere with others' country internal affairs. China is becoming the next world superpower, replacing USA position in terms of economy and probably technology and military in the near future. But we can realize that China never interfere others' internal affairs, and surely in its history never colonize or attack others. The time when China territory expand was because it was being conquered by neighbor kingdoms such as the Genghis Khan and the Manchurian, where Mongolia and Manchurian territory were joined into China mainland. Because the conqueror preferred to rule from China instead of their homeland in Mongolia, Yuan dynasty, or Manchuria, Qing dynasty. China developed nuclear power as solely for self-defense purposes and not for attacking others' nation like what USA had done, not only to Japan but Marshall Islands. May I know why we still need to treat the West like our king? Why the West can treat us like their slave, forces us to use US dollars to trade and decide whether we can develop nuclear bomb or not when they're the one who started it and develop it like nobody business. Should we also mirror them by employ the same preemptive measures to curb any possible colonization them to us? I surely think we should not escalate the situation but instead think sensibly, which is to de-escalate the situation and cool down on the nuclear weapons development program. France, Germany, Poland, Greece, Denmark, UK, Netherlands, and Belgium should let us examine their nuclear facilities and to stripe off any unnecessary mass-destructive weapon that can let them restart their brutal colonization games again. I believe most of the European country can quickly build up their country after World War II is because of the lootings they committed from their colonies, without which their economy is not slowing down and some fall into bankruptcy. I surely hope their economy is not merely depending on colonization or imperialism, USA. I have no bias towards white people. In fact, I love Western culture as much as my own Chinese culture. I also once favored democracy over others, but I know it is not about political system now, it is about money, resources and military strength and strategy. After all, we are still living in the dog-eat-dog world. The jungle laws still apply and whatever it seems like whatever the international laws and UN Charter or UNHRD spelled out is only enforced on non-Western countries, the Global South. Where is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religious belief, freedom of movement and access to all provisions of the basic human rights essential from medications and education? Refer to the link below. U.S. Senator Stotkin received death threats from President Trump. https://youtube.com/shorts/40uyer7gays. C equals YWB7RPU6Q71UZQC. Where is freedom of speech if even USA owned senators has no freedom of speech? Is this not tyrannical regime? Does Trump has special agent like Savak during Shah of Iran Mohammad Reza to silence dissidents' mouth? When Trump speak out for Jimmy Lai of Hong Kong for free speech, does it mirror himself about the same matter in USA? Hong Kong still follow proper legal procedures to prosecute Jimmy, but Trump using death threats. Donald Trump had killed me multiple times in Thailand, at least twice in Thailand last year and once this year in February. Totally disregard and disrespect to Thailand independent sovereignty and laws, as well as severely undermining my human rights. I do not believe US President Donald Trump need to take instructions from Israel PM Netanyahu to wage war against Iran. US is an independent sovereignty and does not sign any treaty with Israel. US may consider whoever and whatever plight or suggestions sent to them, and only when he thinks it is reasonable and doable then he may follow proper procedures to start wars at USA leaders' discretion and not act merely from the order from another country premier. So I think the rumors about him started the war because of Netanyahu told him so is invalid. I think the Cold War resolution is applicable here, where we should be given access into USA and Europe countries' nuclear facilities to examine their stock as well as them do the same to ours after deactivate and de-escalate the tension. Nobody should use nuclear weapons to intimidate others to preclude them from any economy activity. I concur with China Foreign Minister Wang Yi that our enemy is not each other but war and poverty. Thus, we should stop war and help each other to develop economy in effort to fight poverty. Best regards, Zheng Jian Yuan Te Qian.